Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Let me just hook up my laptop. In the meantime, I'm pretty interactive, so I'm not like the guy who kind of, does a speech, walks away with the back door. So if you have questions, I'm here for the next 2 days. I'm very happy to listen to you. I'm a community guy. I don't go to big, fancy party type. I do like after party. I hope they have an after party. And if they don't, we kind of create an after party like we did just a couple of days ago in Bangalore. But I do believe that whatever that you do, you got to share. And I think, looking at what Alex has done, building this conference into this huge conference, I was kind of surprised when I saw this happening. I was like, wow. So how do you go from just a couple of hundred to 1,200 people? There might be something you want to help me with the resolution, guys, here. Just need to put it on a presenter mode. Can help me put on the presenter mode? I think normally the HDMI should work. Awesome. Okay, so while the technician is going to help us, presenter, and then present here. Should come up, I guess. This is me. And I just keep changing those pictures. I was just there talking to the French and the German ministry. We were talking about ethics and fair use of algorithm. So I was invited by the competition authorities in France and in Germany. So I just keep changing. So beard is the new look. I'll probably shave again. So thank you for being here. I think the most important message that I want to give you guys to spend the next couple of days, but also the next, I guess, your career is to focus on these two things. First, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of mis or disinformation out there. And how do you focus on building products and services when disinformation can be a huge medium of distraction? Meaning good AI, bad AI, which country is doing what. So I want to kind of give you a little bit of a sort of flavor of that. And then in the end, I just want to show you that how we didn't get distracted, and we used our skills and techniques to actually build a product. Last night I was sitting in the flight, and I got the news from one of my researchers that we had an amazing new sort of product inside our healthcare. That's another startup that we're launching that was ready. So in a way, you get to see something new as well, which has not been shown anywhere else in the world. Without any further ado, this is the management team, and this is a Dutch company, so we are from the Netherlands. That's my co-founder, and our head of AI is in Canada. So we have, about 25 researchers. They're all, they have doctorates in mathematical, applied mathematics, biology, oncology, besides having a deep learning passion, obviously. So basically, just a quick overview. What is AI? So I'm sure, you guys are, I don't go into much basics of deep learning or AI because I have a feeling you guys are pretty sort of equipped. But I do not want to make that assumption, so just want to quickly go through where AI is being used. You see, learning to drive, this was a project started, I think, 12 years ago, where this gentleman, Sebastian, he came up and eventually set up an online platform, learning platform. How many people have used that platform to get some skills upgraded? Can you raise your hands? Udacity, Coursera is another platform. So basically, learning to drive was one of the wonderful projects that was given by DARPA, and they kind of did a wonderful job back in the days where technology was still evolving. And then these things started happening. So like 4 years ago, lesion or in breast cancer or any of those other projects started coming on this platform called Kaggle. How many people have heard of Kaggle or Kaggle, as some people say? It depends on how you pronounce it. It's a lot of people. Great. You guys are pretty well informed. If you're not, ask your neighbors, because this is what conferences, I always say when I go to conferences is not just going to listen to a talk. It's about talking to each other. So please do networking. That's probably the most important thing. That's why I'm here as well, and potentially even higher if there's talent, obviously. So healthcare came up. High-frequency trading, and bankers have been using, various forms of machine learning techniques to do high-frequency trading. So, so if you're shorting, for companies, or you want to go long, you have your sort of long-term investment, and you do a lot of algorithmic trading. It's been going on for like a couple of decades. So it's not a new art or anything. Machine learning is not new. So basically, NLP, as you may have seen, you may have heard of all these tools and techniques like Elmo, GPT, BERT, and then there are various sort of little children who are born out of BERT, Roberta, and all those things, So NLP is going to be a huge area where you'll be doing a lot of interesting things, which is great. Computer vision or image sort of classification and segmentation has been done for a couple of years already. So it's great that we have something new to learn, which is great. Translation is one, but making predictions around, when you see a huge amount of data, and then what to do about this. Obviously, as AI got popular, people didn't know, and people asked me a couple of things like, how do I learn, if I'm a company, if I'm a CEO, or if I'm an individual, how do I learn about AI? What is it that I need to do? So we also do a lot of community lectures. That's the philanthropy work we do. And essentially, in that, I go to even areas where a normal person would think, well, are you insane to go to, where there's war, but we go with protection from United Nations Development Fund. So you put a bulletproof jacket when you're traveling from regions that are not safe. But the fun thing is to bring this message to young, smart people who are intelligent but do not have access to skills or tools. But we also teach enterprises, because when we start with a deep learning project or machine learning, we're primarily doing a lot of deep learning. So even executives or CEO levels, and if you're a manager, they say, well, I want to understand how this works. So there's an executive program, and I do a lot of executive workshops as well. But again, this is fine. So borderless AI, meaning in a way, basically my take is borderless AI. What is borderless AI? Meaning allowing people from all over the world with talent to be able to solve problems, which is in some part of the world. That's the most important thing we should be focusing on. And that's the responsibility that we need to kind of take. And why does the world need it? So here, okay, this is really important, because when you're reading the media, it almost feels like, if you're looking at CNN or all the other media channels, there seems to be like a binary war. Or I saw yesterday, I think I commented on Ian Bremmer. He's chairman of Eurasia Group, and he brought a lot of big, smart people together, and they were talking about geopolitical technology, some other big, long, jargonish word, and I lost him. But I think the thing is, this is distraction. So what they're trying to say, there is a race for AI leadership or technology leadership. And once again, it's always been there. But people are getting hyper-focused in media about it. So basically, it's almost like, it seems like a tool, or not like a Manhattan Project, but maybe like a Manhattan Project, which is, the nuclear sort of, arms race that started back in the day, that led to, U.S. kind of developing stuff, and Russia. So U.S. and Russia were involved in it. Somehow people want to create this kind of a disinformation where, countries are investing a lot. And I want to give you, what I want you to walk away with is that anybody, anywhere can do things. And we, as a small, humble company, are also doing it. So why shouldn't you? So some countries, like in Europe, for example, where I am from, in the Netherlands, where there's a lot of focus on policy around the fair use of algorithms. In Europe, obviously, you also have GDPR, which is like a building backbone of trying to do the right thing in the right way. And so Europe seems like extremely not focused on using data. We don't widely share data. It's very sort of there. Every department, medical institution, and every other department between law enforcement and the courts, police, meaning police and the courts don't share data as well with each other because they make sure that there's independence of let's say investigation or independence when there's litigation. There people do not have conflict of interest. So that's why these all frameworks, structures have been built up. So Europe seems like these guys don't want to do AI, right? China and US are like, they're unrestricted, and that's the impression in Europe. They think these guys are going crazy, they're sharing data like mad. I don't know, how many people have been to China? A few. So it's crazy, it seems crazy. Nothing is crazy, it's just a context. Every region has a different sort of way of dealing with data. So even parking lot, if you just go to parking lots, at the bottom of those, at the side park, you have small cameras embedded as well. So it's like totally sort of they're capturing a lot of image and video data. So if you're coming from another region where, taking a picture, you already think, oh, did I ask their permission? You would feel extremely exposed or violated as well, deep inside, like, wow, so what are they going to do with my data? So it's almost like two sides of things. While the media wants you to focus on that China and America are at this AI arms race, and Europe is sort of, over-regulated, and these guys don't want to do anything. They just want to stop our businesses. I just want to sort of kind of give you the impression that that's not the case. However, okay, so I showed you, these two sort of, yin and yang. However, this is something definitely everybody should pay focus on. Right, so this is a new book written by Shoshana Zuboff. I think it's a great book. Try to download it or get it on an e-reader. I think it's a wonderful book that talks about from the big brother, which, let's be very honest, the last 30 years, your lives have been managed by bankers and insurers and departmental stores because they know more about you. The only thing, the big other, is everybody else who is playing into this ecosystem and all that NLP that is going to get tremendous amount of intelligence on all kinds of amazing models and algorithms that will be written that will give that other, we don't know who that is, that's why people are scared. It's like, whoa, I mean, I'm a banker, but someone else knows more about this customer than I do as a bank, is we need to be worried about. And obviously the first you have already seen, right? It's happening already in the US Senate. Mark Zuckerberg has been there already testifying a couple of times. Tim Cook has been a vocal sort of, person from Apple saying that data is your property because, he doesn't care. He's selling you a device. He's selling you an iPhone. So you anyways buy for 1,500 euros an iPhone. He doesn't have to work with advertisers. So in any case, I mean, so they're all becoming very extremely wealthy. Forget about what their narrative is. They're all becoming super wealthy organizations, essentially becoming really huge wealthy organizations, while on the other side, we have problems of how to make sure universal basic income and all kinds of crazy discussions are going on. So it's almost like the world is kind of being separated or sort of split apart into two sort of factions. And so basically, you see that, with the internet, all these guys became big. It's extremely seductive to use data. I mean, can you imagine, it's not like me kind of trying to, I'm not a proponent of use of data, neither am I against it. I'm just saying that we just have become dependent on the data that has been served to us on a silver platter, right? You need that information, the app that you will use to go to all these other forums. It's going to give you, valuable information. You share your feedback. It helps, improve the ecosystem. So essentially, the data is super important. The only thing is, what the emergence of that big other. And people are talking about this throughout the panels. And in the meantime, I'm thinking, like, I'm doing a startup, man. I mean, I don't have time to read this. I haven't read her book either. So what am I going to do? So I said, okay, screw this shit, excuse my apology, by use of French, but I said, there's a lot going on in AI, and that's what I want to focus on. So AI is solving things. If you're not, then you should ask yourself, are you doing the right things? So it's really solving things at scale. So essentially, if you look at medicine already, which we started looking back 3-4 years ago, where ideas and projects that came on Kaggle eventually started sort of converting into companies. There's a Dutch company that actually has become a market leader in skin cancer detection, and they raised tens of millions of dollars already or euros in the last year. It was just a simple project. A lot of people were doing that, but this one guy picked it up and he ran with it. So it is not a Manhattan Project. Don't get into those discussions. Don't waste your time or anybody else's time talking about unnecessary panel discussions. Well, it's going to destroy us. No, it isn't. There's no need of huge funding required for you to do that. If you have an idea, you can sort of ratchet up small boxes and eventually prepare your simple sort of hypothesis and eventually start solving that problem piece by piece, module by module. And so basically, you don't need all this, big investments, as people say. You just need to invest 10 billion, the government should invest, and everything is going to be okay. That's not the way I believe it. And finally, I do believe that AI will thrive in open democratic societies in a longer term than in a hyper-regulated society or an extremely sort of exposed, unrestricted surveillance kind of society. And let's not say which society is which, because the world changes every 5-10 years. So basically, this is what I think is the reality. Just want to make sure I don't have, I have 15 minutes left. So basically, so what did we do with a medical startup? Just very quickly. So just give you a couple of use cases. There was a German, so I was giving a lecture in Berlin. So I was talking about capsule networks. If anybody's played with this, 2 years ago, capsule networks was released it was a paper that was released by Geoffrey Hinton. Anybody heard of that? Capsule networks? Some people have. Great. That's nice. So basically, my researcher, who's Chinese, was the first person on the planet to write an implementation with TensorFlow on capsule networks. If you go to GitHub, you'll find that. So basically, I was giving a lecture. This guy walks up to me and says, I have a huge problem in Afghanistan. We have doctors, and things are not working. And I said, I didn't understand. So okay, let's talk. And what I realized when I started having conversations with not only doctors in Germany and in Switzerland who are actually looking at those images, and they do annotations with hand, and they send it back to the doctor in Afghanistan, I realized that actually, tens of thousands of women in Afghanistan are dying. And what's not written here, it's really crazy that even young women at the age of 18 or 19 years old are contracting breast cancer. So I was like, totally fell off my chair. I said, how would a young woman, get contract cancer at such a young age? So I don't know if there's a direct sort of correlation between how it happens, but some things are like when the girls are like 12, 13, they start chewing tobacco. They put tobacco in the middle, just between the teeth and the lip, the lower lip. And they seem to be chewing a lot of tobacco at a younger age, but also there are more other factors. I don't think you can just attribute it to tobacco. So there's only one oncologist in this country. It's a male. And you can imagine if you're from Asian or Arab background or conservative background, women just do not go and start talking about breast cancer. You don't want a guy to sort of, it's a taboo. It's not easy to do. And the other thing is people, when they have education, they all go to Europe. They don't want to come here. They want to stay back in Afghanistan. So that was a huge problem. So I spoke to the doctor. He flew over to Germany. We had a bunch of conversations. And then we said, okay. And then I also got in touch with a female doctor who gave up her sort of, career and everything. She went back. She was... Elle magazine had made a sort of big report about her, and I spoke to her essentially. So it's crazy, wow. Okay, hang on. So so basically, she quit her job. She's putting money from her pocket to make women. So because women are, first of all, you have to go to their homes and tell them that, you have a lump and make sure, says no. And normally the women are very late when they are already contracted. I mean, it's already probably phase 3 or metastatic phase 2 or 3, which is super bad. And still, they don't even have money to go from their home. Sometimes you have to travel long distance to go to that one hospital. So I asked her, and I need to find a way to play this video. So you need to probably increase the audio quality. So I was talking to her. It doesn't matter if you're not able to play the audio. So basically, she's the one I was talking to.
But every day I used to think about my ambition to be able to contribute to Afghan females, socially degraded, what he was stating, females of Afghanistan. I was in search of a good opportunity when I came across a medical doctor position and cancer treatment Jamhuriyat Hospital, Kabul. I applied and was selected. Since then, I have tried to help cancer patients with the possibilities I have. This also led to my first work with the establishment of a cancer foundation, whose sole aim is to protect and treat cancer patients, and by providing them lesser expensive medical care.
I have deep respect for what you're doing. Can you describe also a little bit about what is happening out there and the state of how cancer is spreading and how women are reacting to it, and what are the other conditions that make it challenging for them?
As Afghanistan is one of the most reserved countries where females are suffering due to cultural norms, war, poverty, illiteracy, and lack of trained medical professionals, females are not allowed to or choose to see male doctors or nurses. Therefore, they are suffering due to advanced stage of cancer.
So I'm in talk with Dr. Sohaila Niazi. She's actually left and she's now in Dubai, but she definitely wants to go back. And you're committed to this cause, so we constantly keep improving. Well, what are we improving on? So basically, those months and months of effort that it takes for a woman to go from place A to place B, and then again, months of effort that it takes for an oncologist or doctor to do a diagnosis. So obviously, this guy, this German good friend of mine, he reached out and we started collecting data. But again, it was not easy. There was challenge. So, they had this really old platform, 20 years old platform, which people were starting to collect data back in the mid-90s. So we had to kind of, work really super hard to just get that subset of the data set from the breast cancer. So breast cancer, anybody who's an oncologist, doctor, or anybody who's done breast cancer projects? Anybody? You have? Are you a doctor? Kind of. You're a medical engineer. So basically, there's a lot of difference. The more I started learning, so I have this big fat book on oncology, trying to understand what is cancer, what is that condition. Anyways, so this was cytology. Cytology is cellular level. So cytological slides are very different than histopathology, which you have all the, it's on Kaggle, you have a lot of histopathology slides. So there was annotation done in very different ways. There are competing competing views about one a pathologist against the other, and then basically we just having more aggregate view of, well, what is the annotation and what are the extra comments that people have looked. So it was very complicated, and they had no deep learning expertise. So we use a simple methodology. It's like taking the data, basically just getting a hypothesis done, fully understanding what the problem is, and then eventually creating a machine learning pipeline. And at the end, at the bottom right, have a solution. How did that look like? So basically, we organized data. We did some pre-processing. There was a lot of pre-processing, by the way. So a whole lot of stuff we had to do, augmentation, expansion, data expansion, a bunch of other techniques. We developed a bunch of models. We have written our own algorithms, if you look up on our website. So a couple of new things we're writing as well, generative models and a bunch of other things, flow-based models. And also an activation function, which one of my previous researchers have written, that is much better, a little bit better than ReLU. So we used a bunch of our own tools, our own algorithms, and eventually So he ran it through the pipeline, got those images, and ended up also kind of creating a prototype. So it's basically 6 or 8 months of effort. I can explain in detail if you want to reach out and talk to me about it, how we did it. So we have accuracy, at a reasonably higher percentage, but obviously we are not satisfied. We need more data to create a reliable sort of metrics and recall ratios. So the second story is I'll just want to see how much time I have. I have 3 stories. The third is probably the most important because that's what probably you guys are waiting for. That's the one I'm releasing right now, which is pretty awesome. In fact, my colleague, who is going to be president of the German Dental Society in the next couple of days, is going to be here. So you might have to get to see his talk. His name is Professor Dr. Falk Schwendecke. I'll talk about that. So this is another big problem. So here we use capsule networks. We were approached by this professor in Sun Yat-sen University, that is kind of in Guangzhou, just maybe 30 minutes drive from Tencent, where Tencent's headquarters is. He reached out, and my Chinese researcher, the guy who had written capsule networks implementation, was being approached by a lot of people. And so basically what you don't, I don't know, in Europe, we don't have this problem, right? So no one cares about, if you're an ophthalmologist and because that people have all kinds of medical conditions, because, which you can see through eye. But in India and in China and other regions in Africa, it's a huge problem. It's a huge, huge problem. And there are approximately about 35 to 40 sort of conditions, pathologies that you can identify with ophthalmology and diabetic retinopathy if you're able to use machine learning through just kind of analyzing the fundus, which is the eye region. So there's a lot of diagnosis and early treatment only to prevent blindness, but there's heart conditions, there's a bunch of other things you can identify, so non-invasive stuff, which you can do to actually solve this problem. So we ran a bunch of experiments, and with capsule networks, some of you have played with it, it collapses if you go beyond MNIST. So we are still in a process of experimenting and understanding, and probably it'll emerge again maybe next year. But he reached out to me, so we ran initial experiments with this doctor. He says, "Hey, Terry, I have wonderful news." And they eventually, just went back to convolution neural networks, which is the standard computer vision kind of a model, which almost practically everybody is using. And so he says, not only have we written a research paper, we are super sort of, obsessed about writing papers and presenting at conferences. He says, I've already built an appliance. So, and they had pretty high accuracy. They have data. And eventually about 70,000 images, and essentially, I'm getting a bit. If you could just keep your voice down, okay? Thank you. So basically, essentially they really worked super hard to not only create a reasonable accuracy, but they ended up kind of creating an appliance as well, because device manufacturing, if you're in Shenzhen region, is you're pretty close to the manufacturer, and not only this, they eventually ended up getting an SFDA approval, so they have approval from the regulatory authorities, and have been able to kind of create this model, which they started off as experimental exercise last year with us. And right now they're trying to move into other regions with these solutions where, in remote areas where this problem still needs solving, which is dramatic. And there's this video I can show up later. I think we have just not much time left. I'm sure these fine gentlemen will tell me when I have to shut up. So basically, this is what I wanted to show you guys, is fresh out of the press, as they say. And I talked to my team. I was actually talking to my researcher who developed this platform in US in Dallas, and it was like 1:30 a.m. in the morning. So I just wanted to leave you with the high kind of level information here. So there are like almost 200 million radiography images around dentists. How many people have gone to dentists? How many people hate going to a dentist? And how many people, probably the most important thing, how many people think it's not a disease, it's just a condition. I mean, I myself have, now I know, is called I said root canal, but they say it's apical lesion. So I'm learning more about dentistry as well the last couple of months. So it's a discipline that has a lot of data. So radiography images with, especially when you have sort of the region inside your mouth, it needs to sort of encapsulate and sort of collate and create and reconstruct an image that is in 3D. It's very, very hard problem to solve. So it remains kind of pretty difficult to when you're up there trying to solve this, getting precision ratios in whether it's caries or other forms of infections or lesions. This the teeth where you can create bounding boxes, but you need to try to understand the region under, and then you need to have enough data and enough annotation from all the dentists to be able to say that, for example, if you have your teeth here, and when you're taking a radiograph, you can see when the region becomes less whitish under this gum, basically, and then be able to make almost an affirmative correlation that I think it's a lesion, not just because you have pain, but because we think it's a lesion. It's a super hard problem to solve. Anyways, so this is what we've kind of, also just completed the first phase with our medical institution partners in Germany. So it got us so excited the last couple of weeks that we said we need to launch a new startup outside of the DeepKapha family. And we're right now kind of focusing on building all these solutions. So this is how it looks like. It's just a bunch of prototypes. Obviously, I'm not showing you the real stuff, for legal reasons, and also, because we need to kind of get our product as well through a lot of regulatory pipelines. Skin cancer, and this is just fresh out of the box. So we're right now trying to improve this. And as you can see here, you have a teeth level. Let me see if I can. So yeah, it always disappears. I know. See, it disappears. So you have a teeth level, and you have a lesion level, and then essentially you start looking at predictions to start kind of playing around with the dimensions, and starts giving you apical lesion identification, which is awesome. I think it is. We used very complex algorithms, mask RCNN, and a bunch of there are other new things we're trying. So it's really super exciting. And let me just conclude the talk, actually. I think, there's a lot of confusion out there. There's a lot we have to learn. So the time is super limited. You're here 3 days, and you need to learn probably the most important things about how people have solved problems. That's what I try to do. So keeping attention with the lawmakers, with the regulatory authorities, and once in a while, like in case I'm invited into panel discussions where there are prime ministers and other people sitting. So I want to understand that. But my focus and my message is throughout these conversations is, guys, there are enough problems we can solve with data. There are enough social problems we can solve with data. We have a responsibility on our shoulders to actually, walk together and solve those problems it's not like sweet talk. It's just, hard ass, just doing things, creating products, creating solutions, taking to these markets, and eventually giving those ophthalmologists or oncologists or dentists cervical cancer is a huge problem with women worldwide. There are many, many medical problems that are happening. So I think creating responsible AI by creating products is the way to go. Do participate in discussions where you think is a nonsense discussion around, who's winning the war, and keep pushing those discussions into technology and how technology can solve problems. It has helped me, so it's my story. I'm not preaching anything. This is what we try to do day in and day out. And I think if we can take this message together in the next couple of 3 days from this conference, by productizing, solutionizing, and making things that work, going back to domain experts, learning from them, I think we don't need those hundreds of billions of dollars like Vision Fund or some other. Okay, I don't want to give. But anyways, I think so. Thank you very much for coming to this conference, and I'm happy to take questions.
I have to remind you to use Slido so I can get some questions. So far I didn't get any, but I have one question for you because we are a little bit behind the schedule. And my question would be, have you ever come across an issue, a problem, that you thought we cannot improve this with data? the data wouldn't help.
Have you ever come
Yeah.
across?
Is there a problem that you thought data could not help this problem, or you think that everything can be improved or helped by using data?
So, oh wow, that's a pretty heavy question.
Yeah.
Ah. So I guess changing your hearts and minds to be able to do the right things as technologists, there's no amount of data can convince you to do that. But I think if you look at it from a technical perspective, from an engineering perspective, today with computer vision and text, you're surrounded by computer vision, meaning, listen, this is a three-dimensional manifold space if you study topology. So everything out here is actually a huge amount of data. So, back in, a couple hundred years ago, Galileo also said, the book of nature is written in symbols, mathematical symbols. So essentially, there's data all over the place. Computer vision makes it possible. But I think the motivations and desires and getting people and your teams to work on technology problem through engineering perspective, I don't think you can solve that with data.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you, Tarry. And let me please present you a certificate of,
Oh, wow. Thank you
of
very
being
much.
a keynote speaker on this,
Thank you. Wow.
on this
Amazing.
conference.
Thank you very much.
That was Tarry Singh.